Some insights on US President Dwight Eisenhower's warnings about US military industrial complex being a threat to the US democracy. And what is the US military industrial complex? Okay, let's talk about that first. The military industrial complex of the US is the group is a grouping, well, they're not grouped together, but it's those companies, corporations, etc., that manufacture military hardware. And these are enormous corporations, enormous companies, and who manufacture tremendous quantities of military hardware. G- Generally, it's very complicated, very advanced hardware. Costs millions, billions of dollars. Some of it. I mean, a submarine, U.S. submarine, will cost a few $1 billion. U.S. aircraft carrier, at least $10 billion, and various other armed systems. If you talk about the F-35s, they cost in excess of $100 million. Right? So very advanced, very sophisticated weapon systems, and most of these are exported, right? And the amount of money that pours into these companies' coffers is incredible, immense, which gives them tremendous leverage. How so? It gives them the ability to have lots and lots of Congress people on their side, um, House of Representatives people on their side, so they can buy political power essentially. In the US, you know, in the US, you could say corruption is legal. It's called lobbying. If you do it a certain way, it's legal. So you can buy influence. You can buy people outright. Um, so these companies have become incredibly powerful. So powerful that it is alleged, they shape US foreign policy, military policy. And they essentially want wars to keep on going on or happening worldwide so that they can sell their weapons to various factions that are fighting wars, countries, and so on. So the entire economy of these companies depends on wars going on all the time in the world. So if there is peace globally, then these companies, their economy will crash, and their profit margins will crash to zero, and they'll go bankrupt. And these companies they probably have all the US politicians in their pockets. So that's the US military industrial complex. And it essentially, you could say, was born during the industrial rush of the Second World War era. It revived the US economy. And that's when the American politicians, everybody realized that the war is the biggest boon for the US economy. Because the 1930s was this time of the Great Depression. And the US economy was depressed at the time. And the war revived the US economy and turned the US into a superpower. And that's something that Dwight Eisenhower realized. And when he was demeeting office, he made this famous speech in which he issues this warning about the US military industrial complex, about how it can be a threat to US democracy and all that. And he was right, obviously. From my perspective, the last truly democratically elected US president who who truly tried to change things was JFK, John F. Kennedy. And we know what happened to him, what was done to him. And his little brother, Robert, also ran on the same election agenda, and we know what happened to him as well. So both the brothers were taken out. After that, everybody got the message, and nobody has dared to rock the boat ever since. So there we are. There we are. That's the US military industrial complex. That's how powerful it is. And I'm sure, well, it is said that it's part of the deep state, the real establishment that runs the country. We know that the US is not really run by the president. We know that by now. I think even a person with half an eye can see that the US president isn't really in charge of the country, isn't really in power. It's just a face, it's just a puppet. The real power lies somewhere else. In case you have read the great book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Let's Google it. What Douglas Adams says about the president of the galaxy, shall we? Okay, let's go to Google. Okay, let's see. Douglas Adams about president of the galaxy. Um, okay, let's see this. He was quite a guy, Douglas Adams. So here's the quote from that book. The president, in particular, is very much a figurehead. He wields no real power whatsoever. He's apparently chosen by the government, but the qualities he's required to display are not those of leadership, but those of finely judged outrage. For this reason, the president is always a controversial choice, always an infuriating but fascinating character. His job is not to wield power, but to draw attention away from it. That is the role, the job of the president of the galaxy in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. Okay, it's a fictional book. It's it's a book about existential philosophy disguised as humorous science fiction, essentially. But that's what Douglas Adams said, wrote all those years ago, and that applies exactly to the US and its presidents.